Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I have wanted to make this video about Pluto and Aries square because actually it has been exact since about 17th, 19th of August, but I didn't really get there because I was in London, but I feel like it's kind of important to speak about it, and it's not too late because this week it gets very much triggered by Venus, by Mercury, and then later on by Mercury again, and then eventually Mars as well. So this Pluto-Aries square will be very active in the next couple of months, and I wanted to shed some light on it. Now, before we actually jump into what this square might talk about, we want to be talking about what Aries is. Now, she is the goddess of war. She is someone who is very frustrated, very furious. It's a feminine archetype and kind of like the unintegrated feminine part in our life, which we actually want to be overcoming. Now, actually, her symbol is quite interesting as well. It's an upside down Mars glyph. So it's a circle and then an arrow pointing towards the ground. Now, this is also shows how much of a masculine energy this dwarf planet has. By the way, she was discovered in 2005. She has got a 563-year orbit, so she's a lot slower than Pluto. Therefore, we can call it as a generational planet, and it will be influencing the communities, the countries very significantly. Now, if I want you to kind of imagine how Aries works out, actually, imagine Angelina Jolie in some of her movies. She has got a very prominent Aries, actually. It's conjuncting Mars and Moon. So she has got this warrior princess type of energy around her. Now, from a personal point of view, she was actually fighting breast cancer, and she was very open about it because she did not want her children to grow up without a mom. Now, everyone who actually was born after 1922, they have got Aries in the sign of Aries. As I mentioned, her orbit is about 563 to 68 years, meaning that actually she will be spending quite a large amount of years in certain signs. But because her ecliptic movement is very uneven, therefore sometimes she spends 120 years in one sign and then only 40 years in another. Now, so going back to Angelina Jolie for a second. So as I mentioned, she's got Moon conjuncting Aries as well as the planet Mars in the sign of Aries, and she also has got Jupiter and North Node there. Now, think about it. Mars represents the fight. Moon is something to do with the breast, and unfortunately, it represents Cancer as well. And in the sign of Aries, it's all about fighting. Now, in my opinion, what Aries actually does there, it becomes feminist. It wants to raise kind of awareness about this problem. And that's going to be the higher kind of manifestation of this dwarf planet. Now, I would like also to point out, when you look at her face structure, you can actually see so much Aries within her. Because the cheekbones are popping out. She kind of has got this muscly face, but she also has got Venus on her ascendant, which is Cancer. And pretty much it's all about her beauty as well. Anyone who has got Venus on her ascendant, somehow they have got this personal charm around them, or they have got this beautiful kind of skin and complex to them, and they are very good at attracting people. Now, I do have Venus conjunct in my ascendant. I don't know what went wrong with that Venus, because I don't specifically find myself beautiful, but hey, we have to be working with what we've got, right? Anyway, I'm not here to speak about her chart. I just wanted to illustrate to you how you should be imagining this Aries archetype. So she is a spiritual warrior, and I do believe that it does talk about the choices we make in our life. Now, if I start talking about her mythology a little bit, then you will understand why I'm referring to that. So typically, actually, Aries appears in strong feminists chart, or even in men's chart who are actually working towards female energies, or even, let's say, a guy who works in a feminine magazine, for instance, or a guy who stands up for female rights and all those type of things. Now, so Aries is something which is, so the story behind Aries, let's start with that. So basically, Zeus, in Roman mythology, it was Jupiter actually, organized a wedding for one of his kings. And Aries wasn't invited, and she got really pissed off because of that. So she disguised herself, and then she went to the wedding. And what she did was she threw in a golden apple to the ladies. And the golden apple kind of represented who is the most beautiful in the area. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mirror, tell me who is the most beautiful type of situation here. And eventually, Pallas Athene, Hera, and Aphrodite were arguing who is the most beautiful one. So they went up to Zeus and they wanted Zeus to choose. And both of them actually had their own reasons. So Pallas Athene said, I'm the wisest one of all. And Aphrodite said, I'm the most seductive, I'm the most beautiful one. And Hera also said that, you know what, I am the best mom ever possible. So Zeus couldn't really choose. So what he did was he asked Hermes, Mercury, to actually take this apple to the humans and then gave it to Paris. And then actually Paris had to be making this choice, who chose actually a human lady instead of the three goddesses. So it ended up as a war. And that was the biggest war of the Greek history. And that's the story. So what we learned from this mythology is that Aries is the goddess of discord and strife. So basically she created this war because she wanted to get justice. She felt unheard, she felt unseen, she felt that everyone kind of hates her. And this is exactly what Aries does. So she gets very frustrated and she goes till the end. It's the sister of Mars, but they are a little bit different. Mars knows when to stop, when to fight. It is able to give up. Aries, not necessarily. So it goes till the very end, till actually, because it makes her happy to see others suffering and being in pain, because, yeah, she just wants some type of justice. So, and you should remember that people are actually not wired to hate each other, right? People are more wired to love and to care about others, because we humans want to be happy. We want relationships in our life. So we are more prone to have peace rather than to argue all the time. Aries is kind of the opposite. Okay, so Aries in your chart kind of talks about where your frustration is coming from, what area of life you might not be making the right decision. Now, as I said, I think Aries talks about making decisions. And why did I say that? Another story about Aries is actually when she met Hercules. And again, she threw in kind of like a golden ball thing or apple, and Hercules started hitting it. And what he saw was that this kind of rock or ball doubled its size after every single hit. And then eventually Pallas Athene told him that, listen, if you leave it, it's going to shrink, and then you don't give opportunity to actually double its size. So what we should learn from it is that Once Aries is kind of left alone, nothing is feeding her frustration, then actually it goes back to normal. So what's the message for us humans? That sometimes we need to stop fighting about certain things, and then eventually things are going to be folding out in their highest way. Okay. Now, by the way, I would like also to mention, because today we're going to be speaking about this Pluto Aries square. And Aries is actually slightly a bit even bigger than Pluto. And this was the 10th planet discovered. So the question here is that, is her role important in our natal chart or not so much? And I do believe it is, because if we use Pluto, why would we not use Aries, which is actually bigger than Pluto in size, right? The shape and the form and the ecliptic travel of both are very similar. Now, Aries was the reason why Pluto got demoted. And actually, when Aries got discovered, it really brought in some type of argument within astrologers as well, what to do. And then eventually, after a year, they decided to demote Pluto as a dwarf planet. So we had the Centaurs, we had the asteroids, we had the normal planets, and then eventually they created this fourth category, which is the dwarf planets. Now, by the way, they are squaring still. So Pluto is in the sign of Capricorn. Pluto is all about transformation and demolishing stuff, right? And Capricorn is structure, government, political matters. So Pluto really tries to restructure some things in the society. And, or kind of, wants to gain power as well. That could be another way to look at Pluto in Capricorn, that let's say big organizations, Capricorn wants to gain more power. Now, Aries is actually furious about it. So it is attacking Pluto, okay? And they are only 5 minutes apart. And it will be like that for a very long time. Now, depending on what orb you use for Pluto, with Aries, sorry, I would say that you shouldn't be using more than 2 degrees. But with Pluto, maybe you can go up to 3 to 4. Some people use 5 as well. So considering what orb you use, this square has been going on since 2013. And it's going to be around till 2024/2025 if you use a bigger orb for Pluto. So it's a 12-year kind of square. We're going to look at a little bit the history as well, but very briefly though. Now, Mercury will trigger this square, almost trigger this square on the 27th of September, because he's going to be hitting 23 degrees of Libra, right? And these two are on 24 degrees by the time Pluto almost on 23. So what is going to be happen here is that Mercury, which is kind of a message, kind of half message comes out, Mercury is transport and travel and internet matters and communities and gossips and all those type of things. It almost come to light with Pluto, but then kind of Mercury decides to go backwards. Okay, so we're gonna see some hints of information coming out because I think Aries is gonna push to see kind of the truth in a sense. And also Venus activated this square on the 6th of September, which was exactly on the day of the new moon, depending on where you are though. And Venus is very much about the nice things, right? It's all about wanting to bring peace, and it wants to kind of focus on the social aspects of life, right? But kind of what the Pluto Aries square says, that the relationship is actually not as easy. It's not just about sitting down and then talking to each other, but actually something needs to transform Pluto. And someone needs to be heard, seen, and understood as well. And that's Aries. So it's a very difficult combination, actually. Also, Aries is very much about the shadow side of the feminine power. So it could really talk about that we need to be getting in touch with our sensitive side as well, if we want somehow this tension to kind of dissolve eventually, right? So Aries is the dwarf planet of jealousy and spite. And of course, with Venus, it's kind of sugar-coated at the moment. So we get in all these little messages, you know, that's good, that's not good, that's what we should be doing, you know, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like manipulation. And that's what Pluto kind of talks about. So this square tension could really talk about how we're going to take control over our life. But remember, I think Aries also tells you to make the right decision as well. So is it worth fighting? Because Aries is in the sign of Aries, right? Which is all about fight. Or is it actually necessary to kind of gossip and put disinformation out there, the information out there? So I think this tension really talks about something to do with bringing truth to the surface, because there is something bubbling beneath the surface. Now, Venus also can represent something around the money as well. Pluto is toxic materials, so it could actually very much talk about some type of exchange which is going on in the world. And then, you know, I'm giving you money, you give me, I don't know, some type of Plutonian stuff instead. Right, so that's kind of, you know, important to mention in a sense. Now, and then Mars triggers this point as well. However, in a harmonious aspect, because Mars on the 7th, which is today, trining Pluto actually. So it gives a very intense passion towards something. Right? So Mars is about getting out there, wanting to achieve something, wanting to become the best. And Pluto kind of magnifies that and kind of attracts that power within. So overall, it just tells me that the situation might be escalating. So, so the energies are somehow escalating, in my opinion. And I also spoke about that with my Venus and Mars in Libra energy as well. So you might want to revisit that. But also this Mars will be triggering this square on the 23rd of October with a opposition. So Mars will be on 24 degree in conjunction to the Sun. And it's going to be squaring Pluto, opposing Aries. So to be frank, I'm expecting something to boil. Remember, Mars is something which is actually poking. It's cutting things away. It actually energizes things. So I'm not really looking forward to this Mars interference, because I'm expecting some very hard times around that period. Demonstrations, fight, rebellious energies. Pluto already will be direct around that time also. It could be some type of fights or negotiations which are failing. So overall, and the last time we had this combination was in 2019, sometimes in June. So you might want to be looking back in the history what was going on there. I did not do that. Okay, so Aries is something, a female energy, which is not understood. It's kind of like the women's wound. The woman who wants to take revenge, the woman who wants to be heard or seen. It kind of, in your natal chart, it shows some type of unfinished business in your life. But I would like you to remember actually this phrase, as it is very easy to portray any planets in a bad light. So such as Saturn has got such a bad reputation, right? But each planet has got their higher octave. So meaning that we can use this Aries by making the right choice. Now let's just have a look at, oh, and I would like to also mention something which I think is very important. So as now Aries has been moving between 22 to 24 degree in the last couple of years. So those are the degrees where she doesn't feel invited into the party, right? Or she doesn't feel heard. So the decan is actually Sagittarius decan, something to do with the travel and the belief system. So no one is listening to my opinion, right? And the dwarf is actually Capricorn and Aquarius. So we are not invited into the party when it comes to the governmental situations, for instance, or when it comes to the free choices, Aquarius. So something around freedom and structure, travel. So Aries is fighting for liberation, fighting against some type of governmental matters. So Aries could show the inner fulfillment within yourself. I think once Aries actually moves on to 25 degree, which is going to be Piscean territory, I think she's going to start thriving to find peace, actually. That's going to be happening somewhere in 2023. Interestingly enough, Saturn will be moving into Pisces as well around the same time. So I think this Pluto Aries square is about, I want to show that I have got power. And Sagittarius decan kind of shows that I will show it to others and I'm going to spread it as well. And I'm going to kind of empower others because Sagittarius is a motivational speaker, right? So I would like also to point out that because we've only known Aries for about 15 years, you know, we are not fully aware of her impacts. We don't fully understand her yet because obviously we can look at the past, but that's not the same. So, by the way, she had plenty of children, discordia, rivalry, famish, bloodshed. She called her children like these weird words, right? She gave birth to plenty of evil spirits. So the keywords to Aries is strife, forgetfulness, starvation, pain, battles, murders, manslaughter, quarrels, lies, disputes, lawlessness, ruining things. So we can expect all these. I think something gonna be around FBI changes. I think that's one of my prediction. I think it could indicate, unfortunately, a war happening somewhere. I think it could be talking about some type of discord, riots, protests, demonstrations about something. She also can talk about things like gloating. She's relentless. She gives pain. She is kind of the last one who is kind of like closing an argument. It could talk about running out of food, actually, again, because Aries could talk about starvation. And unfortunately, it could also talk about some type of terror attack as well. She is quite, and also I'd like to point out that this Pluto Aries square could really talk about the internet trolls as well. So they might be appearing quite a lot in the near future. So now, on a positive level, it could be very much about that, you know, because Aries is in the sign of Aries. So it could talk about being motivated to achieve something. But it's up to us what we're going to do with this drive, with this passion. So Aries is very much about humanity, and she is fighting against structure at the moment. So it could bring in some, and no wonder, you know, 2 years ago when they started squaring, we heard about police brutality, Black Lives Matters, rape, and all those type of things. By the way, their first conjunction, the last conjunction they had was in 1756. And that was the French and the Indian War, which actually led up to the American War. And then in 1907, they had the first quarter square. And that was the time when FBI was created, and then they brought in act about sexual abuse and children protection and drug-related acts. And there was also this panic of banks as well, which could also happen in this time around. In 1976, they had an opposition. Microsoft and Apple was actually founded. So I'm expecting some type of struggle for them too, Microsoft and Apple. And also there was around that time, the Copyright Act came in as well. So we might be seeing some type of changes, but that's also the period when the first video game system was introduced, or the first computer appeared as well. So there could be some problems around those type of topics also. By the way, Aries will be in the sign of Aries till 2043. So this is what Aries indicates, and I've got a couple of other things to also share from a psychological perspective. It's like a button you've got which gets pressed within yourself, in your, you know, in your being, and then that's why we become a little bit righteous, right? And imagine Aries as being a wound which gets infected, right? And then it's going to start hurting and it needs healing. So Aries could represent a place of healing in your chart. Please don't disregard it, because I think tapping into this power or its energy, you can do plenty of cleansing around yourself. I think Pluto Aries square is trying to expose the society and the political structure in our life. And it's not about finding someone who to be blamed, but it just wants to kind of bring inconsistencies onto the surface. So thank you, everyone, and I hope this video helps you to understand Aries a little bit more. See you very shortly with another video. Bye-bye.